So very brave, and it's a great decision in the fact that it's positive for athletes to feel more comfortable to address mental health and mental well-being aspects of performance, and indeed the mental health and mental well-being as they're human beings at the end of the day, as well as Olympic athletes. It's been spoken about a lot in other sports, in professional sports such as like cricket, rugby, tennis. Unfortunately, it's not that spoken as much within Olympic sports. I think athletes have been somewhat reticent about opening up about mental health. That not only are the athletes under an incredible amount of pressure and stress, we've also got the added variable of COVID and the pandemic, which Simone Biles talks about and refers to. So it's an added stress and pressure, and this has disrupted and affected their preparation. Obviously, it's extended the games so that rather than just a 4-year cycle, they're looking at a 5-year before they're competing. So it's increased the amount of stress and pressure on the athletes enormously. I think on top of that, the restrictions in the Olympic Village, the lack of family, lack of friends, the restrictions on numbers that teams can take regarding support staff, and of course lack of crowds and fans. So it's a very different and a very unique Olympic Games in Tokyo this year. Olympic athletes are human beings, and we need to treat them as such. I think the fact that there's a bit of a dichotomy here, the fact that they're achieving superhuman things almost, however, they are human, and they are susceptible to stress and pressure and chronic anxiety, as we all are. And I think it's about appreciating their achievements, and certainly the recognition here of Simone of her self-awareness that clearly it was too much, and it got to a point at this point, and it must have been too much for her to have decided to pull out and not to compete further. I think one needs to be really mindful of the usage of social media, especially during Olympic Games. A number of Olympians actually come off social media. It depends on their contracts, and although when they are within Team GB or their own country, I think that's quite tight about what they can do, and indeed the time that they can spend on social media. However, one needs to be mindful that an athlete like Simone, who is probably one of the greatest gymnasts of all time, has a brand, and she's hugely popular. So to maintain her social media presence is probably very important for her. However, the downside and the negative side here is that it's exposing her to comments that perhaps one would actually be mindful of perhaps coming off of social media. So it's a balance here. So I fully appreciate, we appreciate that the top athletes and the greatest athletes have a brand, and that they need to have a social media presence. However, it can be hugely detrimental to their mental health when they're having negative comments after negative comments, and hugely critical comments, even though there's a lot of preparation and support there for these athletes about how they deal with social media, and indeed psychologically how to manage this. It still has an impact. So it's a fine balance here, and certainly in other sports, social media is it's recommended in certain sports that players come off social media during Grand Slams or indeed competitions, major tournaments, etc., due to the distraction element and the detrimental impact it can have on one's mental health and well-being.